Let's start out with a heck of a football player. He was a stud, if I can use that word, as a CFL football player. Anybody that can last 16 seasons in a sports like that, well, he was a durable dude. Welcome to the show, Dan. Let's go over some of your stats for a minute. You played here in Saskatchewan from 87 to 1999, 255 games played, 414 defensive tackles, allegedly and wrongly 153 special team tackles. We'll talk about that later. 3 picks, 17 fumble recoveries, 23 sacks. You should be leading the CFL in special teams tackles, but you've been ripped off. You started in 87, but what was it? 3 years later, they started the league, or was it 3 years that they started counting special teams tackles, and you got hosed?
So my rookie year was 84. They started keeping track in 19.
That's right. Yeah, Toronto and Ottawa, yeah.
They missed my first 7 years, basically. So my last 9 years at 100, I wrote this down, So
that's okay.
Rob Vanstone's been quite kind of on top of this, Yeah. So my last 9 years, I had 153. Rob found through the stats with the Riders from 87. So those 4 years with the Riders, he found the numbers, and I would have been at 245. 245, right. And that would be the record easy. And then my first 3 years, I was with the Argos in Ottawa, and I was picked our special teams player of the year, and I sent you some stuff about those first 3 years. You know what? Those have been 38. That, like Vanstone said, the numbers would be Gretzky-like.
Well, I mean, he even had some numbers for individual years from Rob, like 1990. You had 23 special teams tackles to lead the Rough Riders, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, 3 fumble recoveries, 1 pick. You were a Western All-Star. Then Rob also had 1992. You had 70 defensive tackles. You led the team, 20 special teams tackles, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for a loss. I mean, Rob is just such a wizard with numbers. And we're going to have some pictures up, but I sent the text to the wrong number to Curtis to get them developed. I'm going to try to maybe text while we're talking to see if we can get a few pictures of those up. So it's such a long, distinguished football career you had, and not only should you be way ahead in special teams tackles, and you still look like you could play. I saw you at a coffee shop a few months ago, and I thought, whoa. But you also had the bizarre distinction of being drafted in the CFL 3 times. Like, how did that happen?
Well, 1984, I was drafted by the Ottawa Rough Riders, 13th overall. Mm-hmm. Then I was, then I got, I ended up in Toronto, and I played my contract out. But they had an equalization draft, because back then the weaker teams could pick players from the good teams. So I got drafted. So Montreal had picked me from Toronto, but I played out my contract and went to mini camps with the Raiders in '87 and El Segundo. That was pretty cool with Tom Flores, and you know what I mean. It was pretty neat, For
sure.
So then I got released. So I ended up in Montreal for the end of training camp, because training camp was being held in Halifax. So I got out there late. Then we were going to our first game to play Toronto. We were on the bus, and the team folded. Well, then that was the third draft. It was the dispersal draft. So me and Dave Ridgway ended up here with the Riders. So, I get the distinction. I've been drafted 3 times in the CFL.
And what a draft for Saskatchewan, getting you and Dave Ridgway. I mean, they knew what they were doing with the dispersal draft, the way you guys played, the two of you.
Thanks. Well, Bill Baker was the GM, and I think there was some Dick Adams was one of the coaches here, and he coached me my rookie year in Ottawa.
Dickie Adams.
Yep. So he, I know I've talked to Bill Baker, and all he said was we needed more toughness on this team. Yeah.
You gave it. You definitely gave it. Yep.
But we had a ton of guys like that. Mm-hmm. We did. I had quite a few guys, which was pretty neat. Yeah.
Well, speaking of toughness in that sort of realm, in 1990, thanks to Al Ford the former Rough Rider general manager, he gave us permission at CTV to put a wireless mic on yourself in the Western semifinal up in Edmonton. TSN and Sportsnet, I think, were just a year or two old, maybe. They just were starting, and this. I'd never heard of putting a wireless mic on players at that time. I thought I was a genius. Apparently, probably people were doing it here and there, but we put that wireless mic, and for people that haven't played football in particular, when we ran the feature, they found it very interesting because, and I did too, because all the groaning that you heard, like how physical the game was. It was a playoff game, so more physical than the average regular season game. And you get hit so much, special teams and tackling and whatnot, and you'd get hit, and I'd just hear you moan and groan. Then you could hear other guys moaning and groaning beside you in the pileups. And I thought, I never realized there was so much of that went on.
You know, in that game particularly, it was a snowy, windy, -10. Who knows what the wind chill was? Like, if you recall, even I was trying to talk to our corners and halfbacks. Sometimes my mouth was frozen, you know, and the water bottles were frozen. And it was a nasty day. It really was, you know, and the groaning probably, you know what, I think, hey, a little more painful when it's super cold, you know, when you're getting hit and things. Yeah. It just does. Yeah, it really does. But it's funny, you know what, Don? I found the tape. I don't know if it's still going to be able to watch, but I watched that. I don't remember almost anything from that game, but I watched the game and I'm like, oh my God, like, you know what? So in the fourth quarter, the score was like, I don't know, what was it? It was like 36-27 with about 3 minutes left. And we had the ball on Edmonton's 30 and we went for it on 3rd and 1, didn't get it. You know what I mean? Like, I just look back and go, oh man, like, you know what? Like, you know, some of the guys that had great games, you know, I was like Milson Jones had such a great game, and you know, and Jeff Fairholm and Orville Lee had a great game. He had a great punt return for 58 yards. And it's funny, I look back at that tape. I didn't really, not to brag, I caused a fumble, or I covered a fumble, and I had a sack. I don't remember any of it.
Yeah,
I don't remember any of it.
That's a sign of playing 255 games. Like, you've played so many that, I can understand that. And, you know, I felt after that game, you guys had won the Grey Cup the year before in 89, and I felt the team took the loss even harder than usual because you'd had a taste of that cup the year before. What do you think?
Well, I think so too, because, you know, when I'm watching, actually, when I went through that game really quick, and I'm like, we had our chances. Like, we had our chances. Like, we really had our chances. Like, there was opportunities, but on both ways, you know, Edmonton too, you know, but both teams had their opportunity. We had chances to win that game. We really did, you know.
Yeah,
and it's like, man, you know, and you look back, but it was quite the game. You know, it's interesting because Tracy Ham that year had rushed for over 1,000 yards as a rusher. You know, he was pretty dangerous, you know, and you know, just look, it was, and I guess I remember I watched this game, there was a ton of penalties. It was a
a dirty game, I thought.
It was a ton of penalties.
A lot of cheap stuff. Yep.
Yeah, you know, and I guess during the regular season, both our teams were the least amount penalized teams in the league. But during that game, there was all these penalties. You know, so it's kind of interesting, you know. So,
well, Edmonton was mad because you had knocked them off, upset them. The year before in the West Final, and they were mad, and they didn't want you guys to beat them, and you were proud because you were defending champs. So it's just the tempers were high and the emotions were high, I felt.
Yeah.
And you said it was cold. Normie Fong saved me. I came up in a blue jeans jacket. I would have frozen without Normie Fong giving me a jacket of some sort.
You know, well, in the field, the only parts that were clear because there was snow on the fields, they just cleared, you know, they cleared the length, the width of the field, you know, just the width of the field, kind of on the like 10, 20, 30, 40 type thing, right? The rest was snow. Like, the footing was just terrible. It was awful. Anyway, it was just, but anyways, that you brought back some memories, Don. You brought back some memories. Man.
Well, I mean, you were such a physical player. How are you now? Years later, is your body still okay after all of that pounding you took?
Well, I got some aches. It's just it's funny. I'll be 65 this year, and you start, man, you got to just kind of terms with some of the things that are hurting. Like
Yeah.
the two things that really, I guess for me, are my left ankle and my right knee. And I know ex-teammate, actually Matt Finley. He played with the Stampeders for 10 years, outside linebacker. Well, me and Matt were in Montreal during so Calgary took Matt Finley in the dispersal draft. I ended up in Saskatchewan. Well, Matt just had an ankle replacement.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I've been asking
surgery.
how's it feeling? Because I might need one. Yeah.
Not
So
ready.
yeah. So otherwise I feel good, right? Like if I didn't have these aches and pains, man, I feel like, hey.
Well, you don't look anywhere close to 65. No, you don't. When I saw you at the coffee shop, I thought you could walk on the field tomorrow. Honestly, one of the worst experiences of my life, really. It must have been almost 40 years ago. I go to Hawaii. I end up running into you and Rick Goltz. In the prime of your career, Rick Goltz was about 6'5", 280, muscles on muscles, long blonde hair, tanned. And I would stand there with you two, and people would walk by, men and women both, and nobody looked at me. Nobody. Just at you two guys. You know what I mean? I was like the pencil neck. And I thought, I'm the invisible man. And I have to tell you, they mainly looked at Goltz because you second, but me not even at all. Yeah, but Goltz was just, oh my Lord. Anyway, yes, that was a low point for me when I was like a meaningless individual on the beach with two CFL football players. Now,
the prime. We were in our prime, though. We were in our prime. That's for sure.
Now, you of course left Regina for a number of years, Dan. I mean, now you're back in the community. You're a hardworking city councilor. Why did you come back to Regina?
Well, when I left because I had two boys in Calgary, and I wanted to be close to them. So that's why we left. So my current wife, Laura, she came with me, and I promised her that we'll come back to Regina because her parents are here, and we had a daughter, and I wanted my daughter to get to know her grandparents. So that was that was it. Like, so I was working in Calgary. I was there for about 12 years, and then our president of our company came up to me and said, "Hey, what do you want?" I was like, "Whoa, there's my chance." And I said, well, because I was in the oil and gas industry, right? And people were jumping ship all over the place at the time. And, he didn't want to lose me, I guess. And I said, I want to live in Saskatchewan. And then he just looked at me and goes, what? Why? I said, then I gave it to him, family. And then he's like, Jesus. He goes, how does he argue against that, right? I didn't care about money. I didn't want more money. I wanted to be close to family. And wanted my daughter to have a relationship, you know what? And I mean that. So anyways, because my boys at that time were about 16, 17 years old, kind of jumping out of the nest more, so now I thought this was the right opportunity. And I love Saskatchewan. I do. I love Regina. You know what? It was the best thing that ever, when I came here and with that first group of guys and winning that Grey Cup, you know what? It meant something. It really did. We didn't want to, the team missed the playoffs for 11 years in a row. And I remember us talking about all that kind of stuff, and we wanted to change that. And, it's just, so it's been a great experience, and it's been great to be back, and I guess what I'll say about Regina, you know what? I just find life is easy here. It's easy to get around, to visit people, community. Like there's just it's kind of like having shepherd's pie. You know what? It's comfortable.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, you said you love Regina. Was that one of the reasons that sort of led you to city politics? Well,
I got this coffee group I go to in the morning. There's a bunch of guys that go to my coffee group, and we talk about everything, right? Like everything. And the background of everybody's pretty diverse. And, we're always talking and beaking off. And I guess, you know what? I figured if I'm going to keep complaining, then, what? Do something, right?
Yeah.
Do something. You know what? But making that decision, I'll be honest with you, Don, like, it wasn't easy, man. It really wasn't. It was a hard decision, like, I was like, man, like, yeah, because once you're in, you're in. You know what? You don't want to be just doing half job, and that's typically not how I am. And I try to follow up with people. I mean, I've been trying. Yeah, I've been trying. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes. Oh, and I think you have to be in those shoes to even understand that. Do you not?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, and I'm feeling pretty good. You know what? I'm feeling pretty good, but I feel a good vibe in the city. I really do. I feel some energy.
It's improving.
I feel it.
Yep. Well, speaking of a good vibe, let me see if I can talk into something, because I'm a real supporter of this P3 private-public partnership that the soon-to-be new owners of the Regina Red Sox would like to explore. I was just talking to Al Simpson this morning, because he's my neighbor. I live 3 doors down. And, they want to talk, of course, to the city council and the mayor about building a new facility, baseball facility in the rail yards. It could be done as a P3 with little or no cost to the taxpayer, which is something we just haven't done in this city. Alberta does it all the time. And look where Alberta is compared to Saskatchewan in certain areas and certain facilities. Have you and your fellow city councilors and the mayor, have you discussed this at all? Has it come up?
It hasn't really come up yet. No, nothing. Okay. Nothing has come up with the baseball stadium. You know what's funny? But it's interesting. Like, hey, like I've been to Okotoks. Like when I lived in Calgary,
there you go.
Hey. I've gone to Siemens Stadium. I've caught some games there.
Yeah.
I've been in their field house facility, which is right by it. Like when I lived in Calgary, I used to take my customers for lunch right by McMahon Stadium to go hit baseballs, because there's that white dome that you can hit balls and order a pizza.
Yeah.
Like it was awesome, eh?
Yeah.
It was good. But back to, that stadium, hey, I agree. We need a lot of these things. We need sometimes private investment.
Exactly.
You know what?
Yep.
We do. Like that's the catalyst, that's the stimulus. Like Siemens Stadium, like the family there, I guess that Siemens family donated or gifted $20.5 million. And I believe it's then another $2.5 million for the field house. So yeah, hey, I'm more than open, and I sure other councils be open to sit down and let's figure something out. And does it go in the yards? Hey, I don't know. Maybe that is the best spot. Does it? Is there enough room to put it at real? So
there
you
is.
have.
There's a lot. There's extra room. Al told me. I know that.
Okay, so
there's extra room outside of the actual baseball park.
Yeah.
And it would revitalize downtown for such small cost.
Yeah.
For such small cost. Well, we're talking politics. I thought we'd be talking. But this is sports. It's a baseball facility, and I think it'd be great. Like they can't, the Curry Field is so outdated.
See,
and,
I think the idea with
the Red Sox there. What's that?
I'm not a baseball expert, but obviously in Okotoks they got the field house. Well, this field house obviously becomes quite a training facility for and creates activity in that area. Hopefully in that area to create more, right? Wherever you put it, right? Wherever you put it. So. We want to create, some energy, right? Obviously, but again, it's a summer sport and it's only open 4 months a year. But with the field house,
I think they have different ideas on various things on that.
Okay.
We got to wrap up in time, but I do know one thing that I know you'd agree with, and we finally got a picture up of Dan Rashovich, and thank you to Curtis because of my texting error. There he is in 1990. And there he is. You just destroyed Garcia there on a tackle.
I was worried the refs were going to pull the flag.
What's that?
I was worried he's going to pull the flag. It looked like his hand was like,
he's
like a
looking.
holster.
He's looking.
Yeah, wasn't
Did he
sure.
pull the flag, or can you
No.
remember? Oh, there's another good shot by Curtis. You just
That was
stuffed
nice.
somebody at the goal line against Edmonton
That
here.
was West Final in '97 on the 1 yard line. I stuffed Burse.
Oh man,
Henry.
what a game that was! We could talk about that game too.
Yeah.
That's what you got there, Curtis. That was a good job at the last minute. Well, congratulations on doing a great job in loving Regina, and also an outstanding. I mean, you deserve more credit than you've ever gotten for what a good football player you were, Dan. But thanks for joining us on SportsCage.
Don, nice seeing you, and thanks.